Hello everyone, my name is Alex, and welcome to another trip report. Today I'm at Montreal-Trudeau International Airport in Quebec, where I'll be flying home to Calgary, Alberta on Air Canada Rouge. Rouge is Air Canada's leisure carrier and low-cost subsidiary. They mostly fly to sun destinations and on lower-yielding domestic and transatlantic routes. Montreal to Calgary, though, isn't exactly a normal flight for Rouge. However, since this took place in April, just a few weeks after the 737 MAX was grounded, there wasn't much choice. As you'll also see, I'm currently in a middle seat. This was a super last-minute trip, and unfortunately I just had to pick whatever seat there was. I picked 19E since it showed up as an exit row, and I figured I might be able to trade for a window. After a reasonably painless check-in and bag drop, it was off to security and gate 55. After a few minutes of walking through quite the duty-free area, here's gate 55 and my aircraft for today's flight. Charlie Foxtrot Yankee India Yankee, a 22-year-old Airbus A319. Air Canada Rouge is somewhat notorious for having less legroom than on their mainline aircraft. Just for reference for any new viewers, I'm 6'8", so this'll be interesting.
Sommes toujours à la zone numéro.
Yeah, so after a few seconds of contemplating my situation, I tried to negotiate with my shorter neighbor for that window without a seat in front. There may or may not have been cash involved. But here I am now in 19F. Virtually infinite legroom and... okay, look, I wasn't going to spend 4 hours like that. And once again, this was a rare last-minute trip. I'm normally the kind of person to have my seats picked weeks or months in advance, so I'm just glad it worked out, and I could feel my legs afterwards. But now that I'm settled very comfortably, even the headrests are adjustable, here's our departure from Montreal, starting up, de-icing, and taking off from runway 24 left.
Right, and your seatbelt is fastened. Aisles and exits need to be clear and your personal items safely stowed. It's time to turn off all transmitting and receiving functions on your electronic devices for the duration of the flight. We also... interdit de consommer des boissons alcoolisées personnelles à bord. Pour assurer le confort et la sécurité de tous les passagers, nous vous prions de les garder pour une autre occasion après l'atterrissage. Et nous sommes ravis de vous offrir player.
Today's flight is one of the longer domestic flights I've taken. With a flying time of around 4 hours and 25 minutes, our routing today took us over Northern Ontario, Lake Winnipeg, and the prairies before arriving into Calgary. On Air Canada Rouge, there are no complimentary snacks, so any kind of food is buy on board. In each literature pocket is a detailed menu. One thing that I forgot to mention is that the seat back pocket for this seat is actually the one that's an entire row ahead of you. There's also the usual safety card and Air Canada's in-flight magazine. The drinks were free at least, and I had my usual can of Coke. Since 19A and 19F have an absurd amount of legroom, the tray tables are in the armrest. Because of that, the seat isn't as wide, but it didn't make too much of a difference. Rouge offers free in-flight entertainment through the Air Canada app, and it has a pretty good selection of movies and TV shows. It's not too different from most streaming forms of in-flight entertainment, but it worked well enough. You also have access to a moving map. When it comes to Wi-Fi, Rouge has two different Wi-Fi passes for purchase. The Browse Pass, which is $8.49 for an hour, or $13.49 for the flight, and the Stream Pass, which was $12.29 for an hour, or $21.59 for the whole flight. I ended up buying the Browse Pass for the rest of the flight, and it was just fine for talking to friends and mindless scrolling through social media. The cabin crew also came around with water a couple times, and I'll be honest, they were surprisingly friendly. The lavatory in the back of the aircraft is pretty average, maybe a bit on the small side, but it wasn't bad. Air Canada Rouge has 136 seats on this Airbus A319, with 12 premium Rouge seats at the front and 124 economy seats, most of which have a very tight 29 inches of pitch. It was getting close to lunchtime, so while I was at the back, I went ahead and bought myself the roast beef sandwich. For a $9 impulse purchase, it was pretty tasty. Just under an hour before landing, the cabin crew came around with a second drink service. A quick nap and a few TV shows later, we started our descent into Calgary, landing on runway 35 right.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost there. It is time to prepare for landing. Please make sure your seat back and tray table is upright and your seatbelt is fastened. Your personal items should be safely stowed under the seat in front of you. Here's a little reminder of the emergency exit locations. en sorte que vous arriviez à destination le plus rapidement possible. Entre-temps, nous vous prions de rester assis avec votre ceinture de sécurité. Un de nos collègues au sol.
Overall, I had a reasonably good flight with Air Canada Rouge. 19A and 19F are easily the best seats on the Rouge A319, and if I were to fly with Rouge again, I would definitely choose those seats well in advance. They normally cost anywhere between $20 to $100, depending on the fare and how long the flight is. However, it's very important to note that the middle seats and aisle seats in row 19 don't actually offer much extra space. The cabin crew were all remarkably friendly. I may not have been flying to a vacation destination, but it was interesting to see the different atmosphere on Rouge. Air Canada has put a lot of emphasis on branding Rouge as a different kind of vacation airline, and for my flight today, that still held up. So, Rouge may not have been my first choice, but with that exit row seat, it wasn't a bad flight at all. That concludes today's trip report. Thank you very much for watching. As always, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.